Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're very excited to have you joining us this morning on a very beautiful morning.
Gorgeous.
Here in Charlottesville, Virginia. It is sunny. It is warm. It is not too humid. So, I mean, everything you could pretty much ask for.
It's golfing weather, isn't it?
It is. I mean, if I golfed, it would be.
Me too.
It would be golfing weather. As it is, it would be more like you and I don't hit the ball in various directions.
I had a lot of fun that year. Yeah, if the ball went quite not in the direction I was expecting every time.
Exactly. But as always, we're really excited to be here on the I Love CVille Network set. We are presented by Emergent Financial Services, and we are powered by Aqua CVille Hand Car Wash, by Castle Hill Cidery, by our friends at the Gym CVille, by our friends Miguel and Chick at Sirius Craddock Insurance, by GBS Financial Services, and we are always partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. So we have a fantastic show lined up for you.
We certainly do.
This morning we're going to be joined very shortly by Tim Shirey. He's the owner of Hive and Honeybee, and it'll be a great show in that front. And I know later on in the show we're going to talk a little bit about some economic news, basically things to be looking at. We always like to keep our audience informed on what Xavier's seeing, what Xavier's thinking, and so forth, as well as we'll update you. Couple grants and opportunities ending
last day
today.
Right?
Today is the last day.
Although they have till tomorrow noon.
So you have until tomorrow at noon for several grants and opportunities here.
See, I was listening to you last week. See?
You were paying attention last Thursday.
And I didn't even take notes, which is amazing to remember without the notes.
That is impressive. I have to say that's a bravo. If I had.
Thank you. It's over there.
Oh, where is it? The little Jerry clap thing. There you go.
Thank you.
That's
and the crowd goes wild.
Xavier paying attention on Today y Mañana. So we got a lot in store. I say we just jump right into it.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited.
I'm very excited to hear and listen to Tim.
Absolutely. Just a shout out. A couple of people liked our post this morning about the show. We thank you to thanks for watching the Gym CVille. Chrissy Muniz, Allison Liddy, Nicholas Urpí. Thanks for watching us this morning on Today y Mañana.
Who's Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Miller, hopefully Elizabeth Miller can join us this morning. I know sometimes she's busier than other times. She likes to watch Xavier, but sometimes she is busier than others, so we'll see if she's able to join us to one of our regulars on Today y Mañana. So we are really excited to welcome to the show this morning Tim Shirey. He's the owner of Hive and Honeybee. Tim, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, and we were just, for those who know, we were tasting some of this fantastic honey that Tim makes right before the show went on air, and it
really is. It's from Virginia too, right?
And it's from Virginia. So for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about how you started Hive and Honeybee.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show today. It's an awesome opportunity for us to share that story. So it started about 5 years ago. I got an opportunity to in shorts and a t-shirt, much like I am today, to go out and there was a gentleman in his 80s who had been beekeeping for years and years and years, and he had about 30 hives. And so he convinced me to get on his golf cart, and we were going to take a ride through the bee yard. And I was a little bit nervous because there's millions of bees out.
I know how you feel.
Yeah. But, it was interesting. Like, we drove down, real slow between just two rows of hives. And it was so fascinating. I was instantly drawn in because you had millions of bees just going every which way, in and out of the hives. You could see, pollen of different colors being brought in, and they weren't interested in me. They didn't mind me at all. And I said, I'm hooked. And so that's really where we get hilltop honey from. So over the years, we learned about beekeeping, and we said, hey, we want something that's really interesting for folks to really get connected with. The beekeeping. They may not want a million bees in their backyard, but for sure they may want to learn about what to plant that would help support not just honeybees but all of our pollinators in the area. And so that's really where it kind of culminated as Hilltop Honey. And then the pandemic hit, and that was an interesting time for us because typically we would go out and we would engage with our customers in the local markets, just like we have here in CVille. and those got shut down. So we said, well, hey, we've still got customers, we've still got honey, our customers still want honey, and so we launched hiveandhoneybee.com as an online marketplace, and it was forward thinking on our part, but it was kind of a happy accident. We realized very quickly that there were other beekeepers in other parts of the country that were small, like we were with Hilltop, and they were having the same challenges of how do we still get our honey out to customers, and how do we navigate that. And they were doing some really incredible things with beeswax out of the beehive, and propolis, and honey, and different infused honeys, and aged in bourbon barrels, and all sorts of amazing things. We started to get on the phone, and we reached out, and so now we're excited because we've got about 200 different products at hiveandhoneybee.com with about 34 different partners. Some of those are international at this point.
That's amazing.
Terrific. Wow.
That's fantastic. So in other words, it's a marketplace where people can find not just the honey that you're making at Hilltop Farm, but also honey products, beeswax products. I think there were some candles there, things from all over the country. That is one-stop shopping if you're really looking for it, especially in that area, if you have that niche.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really designed to elevate the ecosystem, right? So to get you connected, again, you may not want 100,000 honeybees in your backyard, but you may want the natural beeswax candle.
Exactly.
To really kind of get connected to the ecosystem, appreciate that, and that helps those handcrafters and beekeepers to have a more sustainable beekeeping practice. So it's really a full cycle or full circle business.
So tell us a little more about Hilltop, for example. I know you mentioned that there were, I would assume there's different plants or things of that sort. Is there something special about Hilltop that makes the honey taste different?
Well,
or special?
Every about 250 to 500 miles, you really change the floral source that your pollinators are working. So honey can be drastically different from one region to another, but it can also be drastically different within a specific region. So in the town of Scottsville, where we have our bees set up on some farmland, they're surrounded by wild blackberries and tulip poplars, and it's just a huge amount of kind of natural what you would have seen before there was any development or any farms. And so, you really get that kind of whole experience in terms of the nectar and the pollen that's being collected from a wide assortment of things, which gives it that, this year, because it can also vary from year to year. So this year, as you can see, it's a little bit darker.
Right,
If we hold it up to the light, it's got a little bit of a cherry and an amber color to it. And so as both of these gentlemen can attest this morning, it's got a cherry. It's got notes of cherry, notes of like blackberry, a little bit of woodsiness, and just a hint of spice at the
exactly.
end.
At the end.
Yeah. A little something.
Yeah, I mentioned that it wasn't as sweet as some of the honeys, but it had a lot of flavor to it.
Yes,
which is very interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously, now out of curiosity, so when the bees go and they I assume then they go to the flower of in this case of the raspberries, and that's where they get the pollen, the nectar, and then they bring it to the hive, and is that how it works?
Yeah, it's actually really fascinating, and there's a huge kind of rabbit hole you can go down. No pun intended, right? With the nature,
we got those too.
But what's really fascinating is if you've ever been in your garden or you've ever been watching a bee kind of work different flowers, maybe in a flowering plant down here on the outdoor mall, what you may have observed is a bee, a honeybee, a butterfly, some of those natural pollinators. You may see them skipping some flowers.
Right.
They don't maybe get all of the flowers. And what's really fascinating is some British researchers did a series of studies, and what they uncovered, they had this crazy idea to hook a microphone up to different flowers. And so as the honeybees would land and they would collect the nectar out of there, the frequency of the flower would change. And essentially what they were able to figure out is the vibrations of the flower communicated to the next bee that wanted to come along that it didn't have anything. and the vibration would change as it filled up. So that's why you see honeybees not working, one flower to the next.
So they
They're kind of skipping.
they can
already
tell
know.
which flower doesn't have a lot of
Yeah, yeah. So really fascinating to be able to really understand what kind of how the ecosystem works, and because they see things different than we do. They see everything in ultraviolet light. So there's some really fantastic photographers out there who have used a UV lens, and they've taken up really good close-up shots of flowers, the different varieties, and with that UV lens. And so
show you what the bee would see.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So you pair that with the vibrations communicating to the pollinators that we're full, we're ready for you, or
that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, because like I said, we have a vegetable garden, and in the morning the zucchini flowers are the ones that open the most, and so you get the most bees out there, and you can sometimes it's like you got 2 bees in one flower, and you can just hear them zzz, and then they'll get out, especially if I'm around. It's like, oh, this guy's bothering me, so they got to go out. But they don't go to the next flower, or they I see them, they jump around, then there's that flower, and I'm saying, what made him choose that guy versus the guy right next to me? I thought maybe it was me, but now I know maybe it's not.
No, it's if you'd hook a speaker and you'd amplify the noise, you'd hear different vibrations.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow, and no wonder, the flavor is just so unique.
Yes.
As to what it's different. You think, well, honey's honey, but it's not.
No.
The honey you go and buy in a store, like your random big brand honey, these just have such an intense, different flavor because it's unique to the region in which we're living.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So we always encourage people to find local beekeepers, because what you're going to find is the pollen sources that may cause you some allergy symptoms in the spring and the summertime. You're also going to find that in your local honey. So we always encourage folks to find local honey.
Yeah, that's what I remember that.
Yep.
And really what we tried to do was we said, hey, let's find different regions like the mountains of western North Carolina that make a sourwood honey, which is a gourmet kind of glass-looking honey, or down in the panhandle of Florida with Tupelo honey, which is that nice kind of buttery honey. So what we really wanted to say was, hey, look, we want you to support your local beekeeper, because that's important for them. That's important for you to get all of the pollen and the nectar sources that may cause you some allergies. You can kind of help your body adjust to those. But what about all of those different ways where you can get kind of different regional honeys that are just very gourmet and have a very distinct taste, or they've been infused with maybe your hot tea needs some lavender infused honey, or maybe you're going to a charcuterie party and you need a bourbon barrel aged honey to go with that cheese. So that's really where we try to help connect people with all sorts of different takes, not just with honey, but also with beauty care products and handcrafted jewelry.
Yeah, that's the amazing part. There's so much. I mean, when I was going through the list of honeys on hiveandhoneybee.com, first off, it's true. Every conceivable infusion, different flavor, different region, you can find there. I mean, you've got I think it's a huge number of different honey products. And then when you go to see everything else, you've got, your beeswax, your soaps, your jewelry, your candles.
Wow.
I like the beauty care products, like EUTY care products, your gifts. So, I mean, there's just so much that you can work with. Spreads that use honey. Yep. I think there was like a cream that used honey. So just
like a facial cream?
No, wow. This one was this was like a chocolate raspberry honey cream.
Oh, that's even better.
I was eating that eating cream. Yeah, no,
that's what I thought.
For me, the
you went from beauty
part,
so I wasn't sure cream.
For me, the gourmet part comes first, and then the one that I put on my face comes last. But I know there's people that if you're interested in the opposite, and you're like, no, the facial is really important. Then you've got it right there. Just so much variety that you managed to put together, and they're all like partners that you like local to their region partners that you work with.
Yeah, so we have about 34 different partnerships that provide just some amazing products that we didn't even think about when we started. So this is really great because they're already doing a great job. So we wanted to partner with them to bring just amazing selections of things that people hadn't even considered. And on our journey, we got into handcrafted soap.
Is that from beeswax?
Yeah. So we use beeswax and we use raw honey in our soap making.
Wow.
So beeswax will actually make the bar harder. So it will last longer.
Okay.
And raw honey makes nice, rich, creamy bubbles. Right? So those are the two things that people who maybe have tried handcrafted soap before, they said it kind of goes pretty quick. It kind of melts away, and the bubbles really aren't what we'd like to see. And so what we kind of discovered was, hey, the beehive really does make it better. And we've got lots of beeswax and lots of raw honey, so it makes that process sustainable where, I'm not having to throw out beeswax because I don't have anything to do with it.
That's fantastic.
And we're able to collect beeswax from other beekeepers. So, it's sustainable, it's a natural resource, and so it works out for everybody.
So let me ask you a question. So the bees also not only do they make the honey, they make the wax also, right? And so how often do you have to take the wax out? I mean, what's the reason, or how does that work?
So sometimes about every 3 years, we'll kind of checkerboard new wax in, just as a disease mitigation.
Okay.
Because sometimes you'll get, they may have gone through and they may have they may have got into a flower that's coated with a pesticide, from it being blown. And so that kind of small particles just end up in the residue. And so it's also a disease mitigation practice. But really, when we harvest honey, there's a nice big frame that we'll pull out, and they've actually drawn the beeswax out beyond the wooden frame. And so what we're able to do is take a hot knife and it just curls. Those wax cappings just curl right off. And then we put it into an extractor and we spin the honey out, and we give those back to the bees to clean out, and then we'll use them for next year. But you have all of the wax cappings where they've capped over the wax to let you know that, hey, the moisture content is right, it's ready to go. Those wax cappings, you then have a byproduct. And so we work with local beekeepers to take that byproduct
and turn it into soap.
Turn it into soap. We also have,
Is that a candle?
No, so we do have beeswax candles, but this is a beeswax whipped body butter that doesn't use preservatives.
Oh my
Body butter.
Yeah, body butter. So
what's that for?
It's like a lotion that you can apply to your whole body.
Okay.
And it's whipped, and the beeswax is actually a humectant. So what happens when you actually go in and you apply a body butter like this without any preservatives and with beeswax, that beeswax is acting as a humectant. So it's trapping the moisture-rich oils to your skin, creating a barrier and helping.
So you don't dry out.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So unfortunately, these are all made local.
Butter. I'm thinking of taking a bagel and I'm saying, wait a minute.
No. It smells like it's heaven. This one's heavenly honeysuckle.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let me give that a sniff. Oh,
it's good for the
so think driving around on a country road, the honeysuckle's grown
nice.
over. Yeah.
Are the bees attracted to that? Not sure if I want to put that on before I go out to the garden.
You may find some interesting bees coming up thinking you're a flower, but you certainly don't look like a flower. So I think
they don't stain flowers.
Yeah.
You're protected though. They come up and say goodbye. That's amazing. Because it's so important. Because I know that so many of the chemical-based things that claim to be moisturizers and stuff don't actually do anything.
That's right.
Like they're really just there to make you feel good. So the idea that I mean, surprise, surprise, there is something natural out there which actually works with your body to keep the moisture in, so your hands, especially out in the winter, I would imagine, don't dry out because you're keeping that moisture locked in there, and not just the fake feeling like, oh yeah, I rubbed this oily thing on my skin, so now I must be moisturized. It's like, well, not really. It's going to go in 2 seconds. You go outside, you're going to lose it all. But to keep it in there and also smell so beautiful. Fantastic.
That was good.
That was really. I mean, I'd also double that as a candle and be like, if I need to just sniff it every once in a while, like, oh, that smells nice. I'd be like, use it judiciously. And,
yeah, you
give
just
it a
rub it
little
in and
sniff.
take the smell with you, and then
That's
you always
right.
have,
There you go.
you always have that candle aroma, you know.
That's beautiful. And it's just amazing. I love the idea, which, I mean, it's one of my favorite things about today when we talk to entrepreneurs like yourself, is that you think of ways to be really efficient, which often results in new products and new ideas you wouldn't have thought of before. In other words, how do we use these byproducts rather than like a really large corporation say, I just dump it, we're making so much volume, who cares? You're like, oh, we have this bees, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
We can make a body butter with it, we can make a bar of soap with it, and before you know it, you have something that without an entrepreneur thinking about it and a small business thinking about it would never have been out there.
Yeah, and we would have, we did a lot of kind of trial and error. Hey, let's try it and let's see. I've got a lot of beeswax. Let's try it. So that's been a really good. The last couple of years, we've really perfected a lot of those recipes with Queen Bee Luxury Soap Company, which is our exclusive beauty care brand on Hive and Honeybee. So
absolutely, and I know a lot of our audience really is always interested in sort of the inner workings and what it's like to be an entrepreneur, a small business owner. So I'm curious, since you're someone, you've got your own brand, you've got a marketplace with online selling, you've got some wholesale that you do. What are some of the opportunities and challenges you found as an entrepreneur being in that online sales and wholesale space, in addition to selling your own products?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we've kind of run into, when we look back and we say, oh, well, maybe we would have made a different decision had we known about that in the beginning. I think we decided to go more like the motor model in terms of a marketplace, which really did, it worked out because it gave our customers an opportunity not to come in and visit our blog and get some education, because we're actually beekeepers, and we talk about all the we share what's going on inside the beehives and kind of what we're seeing in different seasons and different trees and different types of honey, and highlighting some partnerships. So there's a lot of educational material that we put out, which is really good, and you can always come there and find something, right? Something different, something unique, something amazing. Because I'll tell you what, they go super fast, right? Because it's here, it's local. We do local delivery, so we try to meet all of our customers locally as we're kind of got a storefront on a roadmap, but we're not quite there yet. So not being able to get quite to a storefront, we decided to branch out and build some of our wholesale business. So we make a lot of beauty care products in-house under Queen Bee Luxury Soap Company, and so like the Crozet Artisan Depot is showcasing Queen Bee Luxury Soap products.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of different avenues that we didn't really think about at the time that have opened up, and you just gotta say yes. But I think the things that have been most beneficial are the times that we said no. And we've passed on what looked to be really great opportunities, but we knew, like, if we lost focus on what we were trying to build,
Right.
You only have so much capital.
That's right. That's
and
true.
it only goes so far. So you really do have to prioritize, what's in line with your strategy. And if you take all of these other opportunities that show up, you may kind of find yourself in a disarray, spinning too many plates. And so that's the biggest thing that we've kind of learned on this process is when to say, hey, that's a great opportunity, but we're not able to do that right now.
Yeah. Just curiosity, because you mentioned that particular the honey. Is there a season for honey? 'Cause in other words, you can't produce a million of those bottles, right? Because there's only so much honey to go around.
Yep.
Is there like a season for it where this is where we bottle because this is where most of the honey comes from the time period?
Yeah. So actually, all of this was just recently extracted and bottled. So here, you run about a 4 to 6 week honey, what we call honey flow.
Okay.
Which you have all of these months outside that where there's enough for them to make sure that they're still working blooms and they're still bringing nectar and pollen back into the hives. But really, when we look at effectively managing bee colonies, there's only a 4 to 6 week window where their population just explodes,
right.
and you've got
a
large amount of harvestable honey. So it is certainly not something. There are places throughout the U.S. where they may have something that happens in the fall too.
Oh, like multiple
Okay, yeah.
4 to 6 week cycles, but
Yeah.
But the winter, there's pretty much nothing going on.
No, they actually, inside their beehive, they keep that space between 93 and 98 degrees all year round, right? So there's,
Wow.
I like to joke with people and I say, we've got southern honeybees. Because they sit in the summertime, they sit out on the porch, and they just enjoy themselves, and maybe they do a little bit of fanning to kind of pull that hot air out. But yeah, we've got the southern honeybees.
Wow,
Oh, my
I never knew that.
I didn't know that. Just their own movement and the way they seal off their hives kind of keeps it warm.
Yeah, so in the winter they'll actually cluster. So they take maybe about 10 to 15,000 honeybees through the winter, right? So those bees are a little bit fatter honeybees. They live a lot longer during that period of time, and they'll actually generate heat with their wings. So that's how they'll kind of cluster together, like the size of a grapefruit inside or a basketball. And then in the summertime you'll really see an explosion. And it will probably peak sometime right around the end of the honey flow when things start settling down. You'll crest at about 60 to 80,000 honeybees in each hive. So yeah, it's
Incredible. I love nature. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing, this process. And I think one of the things that fascinates me about this, that I kind of love so much, is the way it's humanity, it's you working with nature to help keep them alive and thriving, and then they provide you with honey that we all get to enjoy.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. So somebody asked me when we were pulling off honey, they said, well, hey, like what if you just left it on the hive and you didn't take it? Well, you'd kind of get some lazy honeybees, right? Because why would I want to go out and I want to fly and find a flower and bring the nectar source in when I've got all of this sitting here? And so, they'll go through and they'll actually consume it instead of getting out and working. So that reduces the pollination effect on all of those plants and trees that need that. So, this really is a good symbiotic relationship where, especially now with colony collapse disorder and varroa mites and different diseases that are in the honeybee population, we can really go in and be effective partners and help them thrive. And in exchange for that, we get some honey that we get to share with folks. So it really is a great mutually beneficial relationship.
This is why we need the Winnie the Poohs of the world, right?
Actually, the bears, that's the bear. Just before humans, the bears used to do
That's
that.
right.
So I have an interesting fact about bears. So everybody thinks Winnie the Pooh, and they think he's after the honey. He's actually after the protein in a beehive. He's actually after the baby bees that are incubating in the honey.
But not Winnie the Pooh, because I saw him eat the honey.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He's different.
All right,
He's different.
The other bears.
Oh, the other bears.
all the
Yogi
black
and all the other
bears.
guys.
Yeah.
They're after the bees.
Yeah.
I mean, the little bee. Wow.
Yeah, so think of a butterfly in a cocoon, right? So that process of an egg to a caterpillar to a cocoon to an emerging butterfly, that also happens in the honeybee population. So it starts out as an egg, then they turn into what kind of looks like a grub, if you've ever dug up a grub in your yard.
I've seen those.
So it's an all-white grub-looking thing. The bees kind of take care of it, and then it goes through a pupation stage like a butterfly does the cocoon process. And so that's really where those bees are developing into what you would know now as a honeybee from a grub kind of look.
And so the bear comes in and wants...
Yeah, because he's looking for a rich, dense protein source. Because you have two things. You have baby bees and then you have pollen. And pollen is the most protein-dense thing on the planet. So what they do is they take all that pollen, they get the enzymes and they pack it into cells and they ferment it, and we call it bee bread, but it's their protein source. So they do use nectar as their carbohydrate source, and you have to have a protein of some sort. So that's where the pollen comes in, and those two are a good food source. But that pollen that's packed in there, that's fermenting, the baby bees, that's really what's pulling in those black bears.
That's incredible.
Learn something. Wow.
I learned
Next time we're going to collect some of that pollen and feed it to you, because all that good protein might be good for you.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, and we've got a partnership that provides us with jars of pollen So it's something that they work to collect through a pollen trap. And so they manage for that, and so that gives you an opportunity to put in your smoothies, put on top of yogurt, put on top of ice cream.
Unbelievable!
Wow.
Yes, I never knew that.
Amazing. I've learned so much.
Always do. We always do. This is what I love about the show.
It really is. It really is. So before we let you go, Tim, where can people find you? Where can people find Hilltop Honey? Where can people find Hive and Honeybee?
Yeah. So we're on all the things. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, TikTok at Hive and Honeybee Store, all spelled out, one big word. So you can find us there, or you can go straight to hiveandhoneybee.com. And there you'll find all of these great and amazing products and so many more that we're always making new partnerships and bringing on very cool, nifty things that help elevate the ecosystem for folks.
Absolutely.
That's
It's
wonderful.
been so fantastic. Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been
an absolute
wonderful.
pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We appreciate it.
Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
All the senses have enjoyed this. Right?
Yep.
Taste buds, the aroma,
I know. It's been
the education
fantastic.
here. That's been great.
No, it's
It was
been
funny
great.
because you mentioned before.
And Tim, you can feel free to watch the remainder of the show. If you're a busy man, feel free to head out, whatever you can, whatever you feel like.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it before, right? So you were asking the question about us as a small business, right? What are the challenges? And when you think about, most small businesses already have some challenges, right? And to think about what's happened over the last 4 years, right? Where 2019 was a booming year. We hit into the pandemic 2020. And then you hit 2021 and you have all the issues, obviously, with some people can't find, enough glass, enough bottles,
Exactly.
supply chain problems. 2022, you get into the, high inflation scenario. The cost of gas has just, exploded. And so all these challenges, right, for big corporation, right, isn't as grand, right, or as difficult as it is for
As a small
entrepreneurs,
business.
right? Just think about the last 4 years. It's been amazing how small businesses have to, we always use the word pivot, how they have to think about, okay, we're in a pandemic, what do we do? All right, we have these chain issues, how do we get our product out there? How do we bottle everything? And it's just been incredible how, they are able still to survive and flourish even in these difficult times.
I know.
It's been amazing. It really has.
It really is. It's just how much they do. But then it's that creative destruction in the sense of, because small businesses and entrepreneurs, I think, have greater challenges. They're not able to rest on their laurels quite big
never.
corporations, right?
Yeah.
They then come up with, that's how they come up with the new ideas, the new products. You know what I mean? There's only so, when you get to the really big corporations, when was the last time you really heard much new out of them? I said, well, you just sell the same thing over and over again. You do look at this slightly new flavor that's temporarily out there for the same product that you've seen a gazillion times. But it's really the small businesses that are like, all right, well, I have no choice but to make use of the byproduct. I have
Exactly.
If I'm going to turn a profit, I need to use some of this beeswax. I need to use some of this byproduct of me making paper. I need to be really efficient and productive. I need to change how I'm doing something. And before you know it, they've come up with new things.
Exactly. Well, it's like Tim said, you have limited capital. You have to be very smart how you use that capital, right? Both from a perspective of product and a perspective
Money
of
and
marketing.
your time, and also your time.
Yeah.
In other words, I did with a small business owner at the very beginning, in particular, it's you.
Sure.
Putting that work, that expertise. So there's only so much you can do.
You only have 24 hours in one day.
Yep. And so they have to just be so smart, so resourceful with their time and their capital that they just end up producing new ideas and new products that we all get to benefit from.
Absolutely. And it's funny because even before the show, I was chatting with Tim and asking him how the business was going, and he did mention that without any doubt, you can see that sales are beginning to drop a little bit, especially compared to historical time frame where, obviously this is usually a good time frame, right? In the sense of this business, especially with the honey. But his feeling is between gas prices being so high, inflation being so difficult on people,
a lot of entrepreneurs,
you're beginning to see people pull back on some products. And usually, unfortunately, it is the small business owners that have get hurt the most. So these are, without any doubt, once again, challenging times for everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. Just speaking to the resilience of small business owners, that they're continuing to be so successful in the midst of an economic environment that is not exactly super excellent at this time. We wouldn't describe it as booming.
Exactly.
In any sense. So I mean, is that kind of what you're seeing out there?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, today we had the personal spending come out, and it was 0.2, and I think most people expected 0.4. So what does that mean? That means that people are spending less. And what they've also noticed is that there's been slightly shift out of goods into some services, right? So people saying, all right, in the last 2 years, I've been buying. Now things are much more expensive, right? Gas is expensive. Inflation's eating into my disposable income. So if I'm going to do something with my disposable income, maybe I'm not going to buy that. Maybe I'm going to do something with services. So, and I think we're beginning also to see, I read a small piece that says that international travel is beginning to pick up again, right? So, so maybe people saying, all right, I've done everything. Maybe this COVID situation is under control now.
Just that
maybe
I feel
not.
comfortable
So
now.
maybe I feel comfortable about once again traveling, doing something for myself where I go out.
But of course, when inflation is high and money's tight, if you're going to take a trip, a road trip in the summer, you're going to take an airplane trip, you're like, all right, if I'm going to do that, I need to cut back somewhere. So before you know it, people say, well, I won't buy that new chair. I won't buy this. These pillows are cute, but at $20 a pillow, I'm not going to buy this pillow. I'm not going to go to get this towel. You see some of these big retailers, their inventory is high, and they're trying to get rid of it. But just people are sitting there saying, well, you know what? I can't afford to both buy stuff and buy experiences. So since I'm now ready to take a trip again, I need to cut back on the stuff.
It's got to be one or the other. Yeah, I mean, and that's the issue. And I think so. The numbers coming out. There's a personal consumption expenditures number, which I think the Fed uses a little more to gauge inflation, and it's up about 6.3%. So it's a little lower. It's a little lower than CPI, and it measures different things than CPI because CPI is much more out-of-pocket expenditures, while the personal consumption expenditures kind of take into consideration a lot more, and it also includes not just it also includes households and nonprofits and things of that sort. So the number's a little more lower than the CPI and the PPI. Not to say that those numbers aren't important and that this one's important, not important, but in either case, when you look at it, a 6.3% is still a very high number,
especially
historically.
Especially this far in. In other words, part of what's important to realize is that we've been in an inflationary cycle for more than 12 months now. To still be seeing 6%. To still be seeing up 6% from a year ago,
exactly,
when numbers were already up, is not a healthy number.
No, it isn't.
So it's the further you go on, the less you want to see those numbers.
Absolutely,
because you're already at a higher price level.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and we talked about that. In other words, when you look at PPI numbers at 10%, you look at CPI numbers are 8.6, 9%, right? And you say to yourself, okay, so have we reached the peak? And the issue is not so much have we reached the peak, but going forward, are we still going to see 5, 6, 7%? Because you already had 8%. Now think about it. Now you're adding another 5, 6% on that 8%. It's not like you start from scratch. You already are up here, and now you're adding from that. In other words, if gas prices are already at $5 a gallon,
you don't want to see another 5%.
That's right. If you add another 5%, it's 5% on $5, not 10% on $4.
Exactly.
Right? That's a huge difference. So, things, unfortunately, where we are today is still a very challenging times for the consumer. And you can see that the consumer sentiment is way down, right? A lot of consumers are thinking recession. There's a lot of talk about recession.
The we had a negative first quarter.
Yes. Which was revised.
Which was revised.
So minus 1.6.
And it's still negative.
Still
So basically,
negative,
it's basically around the same
It's
number.
worse than what we thought.
I mean, it went from minus 1.5 to minus 1.6.
Right.
So there's no way that's going to be revised into
no way,
positive
no,
territory.
no.
So it's baked in at a negative number. You look at second quarter is tracking now at 0.25%. In
Yeah.
other words, basically as close to zero as you can possibly get.
Exactly.
In terms of GDP numbers. That could very well end up being negative. So you're looking at that. But the interesting thing, as we were kind of talking about in the car, is that the market, in terms of the stock market, has already been kind of telling us this information
Yeah,
for a while.
they knew
I'm
about it,
reminded
yeah.
of Interstellar, when Matthew McConaughey says, the Earth's a treasure, it's been telling us to leave. I'm like, the market's a treasure, it's been telling us the economy's not looking good.
Exactly.
For a while, which of course makes it very interesting, because your normal go-to assumption is, oh my goodness, I think recession's coming, let me get out of the market. But if the market's been telling you and behaving like recession's coming for, what are we now, 6 months now, today's 6 months of the
Right.
market, and it's already down 20%, it may be time also to sit there and say, well, wait a second, the market is not unaware of this. Right? So the market is not going to have a downward shock. The market's not going to suddenly wake up on July 1st and say, oh my goodness, recession's coming. The market is telling you and has been telling us that recession is coming. So this may actually be, there's an opportunity to sort of enter the market here, because you're sitting there, and it doesn't mean it won't go down
Of course not.
further, right? But it does mean that some of the negativity that we're seeing, some of the anxiety about recession that we're beginning to see in the average person, has already been baked in.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you look at history, that's what's happened historically, right? You look at recessions, past recessions in history, right? The markets begin to go up before the end of the recession, right? Because they've already been beaten up so much that after a while, people say, this becomes an opportunity. I mean,
Exactly.
Recessions are terrible, but there are opportunities in the market because you're able to buy. I mean, think about it. You're buying things that are 20% cheaper in some cases, 30% cheaper. I mean, the Nasdaq's down almost 30%. There's some biotech technology companies that are down 45, 50%. So if those companies are really, really good and you think they're still the future, you're buying them at a 50% discount. Can they go down another 10, 15%? Maybe. Right, but the last thing you want to do is miss the upside.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the upside because you mistimed the bottom. You don't want to sit there and say, to avoid another 15% drop, I missed the 20, 30% upside.
Exactly.
Because I was waiting for that shoe to drop. But sometimes there is no second shoe. Sometimes you just drop one shoe, and that's it. So you sit there and say, these are opportunities to at least think about it. Right, structure it in. Like we always say, you structure your portfolio based on the risk that you can afford to take.
That's right.
Not based on where the market is. So if you're sitting there and you haven't yet entered the market, right, or you have cash that you've generated because you were wisely invested in dividend or interest-paying stocks, right? You have cash on the side. Don't be sitting there saying, I'm just going to leave a lot in cash because I'm not sure I want to try to time the bottom. What you need to be sitting there and saying is my total portfolio, including the cash, the level of risk I want to be taking? If the answer is, it's really less risk than I should be taking, then you need to put some of that money to use.
It's not a bad time.
It's not a bad time.
Yeah.
Nobody's
saying
don't
rush in.
Don't intentionally take less risk than you should be taking because you're trying to time the market.
Exactly.
And the reverse is true. In other words, don't take extra risk because you're trying to time the market. Don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to go really risky because the market might be at the bottom. Don't do that either. You figure out what's the right level of risk and you invest.
Yeah, you got to make sure you always stay at your comfut level. At that level where, one, you're comfortable, and two, it meets your goals. Because that's the most important thing. If you have a long-term goal and this particular allocation meets your goals, make sure you do it. As a matter of fact, again, yesterday I was reading an article with regard, and I think it was Wells Fargo that came out with this, saying that they themselves are looking to put about $5 billion into the equity market out of bonds. Why? Because they have an asset allocation in a lot of their pensions.
And it's out of whack.
And even though bonds have been down, bonds are down, whatever, 5, 6, 7%, right? Stocks are down 20 to 25%. So you need to reallocate, right? So you need to sell some bonds and buy some stocks. Right? They're doing that. There's going to be a lot of think about target date funds. I mean, they adjust that every 6 months, 1 year. I don't know exactly when target date funds readjust, but that's going to happen. So sooner or later, you're going to see the equity markets begin to move, and you're sitting there going, nothing's positive's happening. Why? One, because there are allocators out there that have to shift their funds, right? They have to rebalance.
Well, and two, then the market's forward-looking. So remember, like you said, the market begins to go up before the end of a recession.
Yeah.
Because there's a point at which we're all negative. We're in the midst of it. We're struggling with recession. The average person, and the market's like, 6 months from now, we might not be.
I'm beginning to see the light at the end of the
tunnel. Exactly, because the market tries to get ahead of it. The market is forward-looking. You don't buy a stock based on what it did for the last 6 months. You buy it based on what you think it's going to do for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So at some point, the market looked at some of these companies and said, did Coca-Cola lose all these sales the last 6 months? Yes. But I think the next 6 months are going to be better for Coca-Cola. Ergo, I'm going to buy Coca-Cola.
Exactly.
So that's what tends to happen. The market looks at it and says, I don't care that it's been in recession for 6 months. I care what it's going to do in the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
So at some point, you hit that peak. And the issue, of course, with things like GDP numbers is that they lag. So we could sit there, and 3-4 years from now, when they revise these GDP numbers, we'll find out that the fourth quarter of 2021 was also recession. And we're like, we were in recession for 6 months and we didn't even know it.
Exactly.
On the ground, it felt like it, but the numbers didn't tell us that for 6 months. Is what happened in the great financial crisis.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was not until like 3 years later that they went and revised the numbers and said, actually, the recession started in 2007, not 2008. And just no one knew it at the time.
That's right.
Numbers-wise. There were people on the ground that probably knew it. Entrepreneurs probably saying, my sales are down. I think something's up, right?
That's true.
But the numbers, the GDP numbers, didn't reflect it until 3 years later.
Yeah.
That they looked back and said, actually, we were in recession.
And that's the problem with data sometimes. Data is great, but sometimes it comes to you a little late, right?
It can lag.
By the time the information gets to you, it's a little over. So again, you're right. The markets are always trying to look forward. Right, and you get to a point where you're smack in the middle of something negative, but they're looking forward and saying, from what I'm seeing, it really can't get much worse. And if it does, I'm willing to take that chance because the upside is greater at this point than the downside. Yeah.
Exactly, and then that means you, as the person investing, you don't want to miss that when that turn happens because you're sitting there saying, I want to try to get the bottom.
Yeah. And we've talked about that study, and even I think what was the last week you talked about.
Last week we had one of the biggest days we've had this year, and it's smack in the middle of a terrible month.
You miss those big days in the market, and you never get what you should have gotten, or what you would hope to get.
Absolutely.
Which is interesting. I saw this morning, and I saw this quote, and I thought it was pretty appropriate. It said, "Never give up, for that is just the place and time that the tide will turn." That was Harriet Beecher Stowe, but it's true, right? I mean, it's just when you say, "I'm done with the market, I got to get out."
Exactly when the tide is turning.
So you always have to be patient, cognizant of what you're doing, and just sometimes you just have to ride it out, and it'll come back. And we've seen that so often.
Absolutely, absolutely, and just. The entrepreneurs out there the small business will continue to be the backbone of the economy.
It will be.
And they will help us get out of it.
They will. They will help us
get
out of it. And the consumer.
And
right now, the consumer is suffering, but, hopefully, we do get the inflation numbers under control, and then people can start feeling better. And control meaning that, like you said, we're not going to see prices go down.
Prices aren't going to go negative.
But as long as they become stable, people say, okay, I can now budget what I'm going to be able to spend over the next 12 months because I don't see prices rising. But when people see prices rising weekly, monthly, you go, where's it going to be a year from now? And I'm only making this amount of money. My wages are going to keep up with it, so I need to come back, right? But once prices stabilize, people feel better. And they can say, yes, I can now do my budget with certainty, much more certainty that I'm going to be able to follow it.
Absolutely. And still opportunities out there for small business owners to really get some assistance and growth in these tough times. There's still, up until tomorrow at noon, you can still do the Minority Business Alliance grant opportunity partnership between Minority Business Alliance and the United Way of Greater Charlottesville area. So that's still there. You can still apply. That'll be received by noon tomorrow.
And it's an online process. So
it's
right?
online. Literally, you go to CVilleChamber.com/MBA. Details and apply. 10 grants, $5,000 each grant. Eligible minority-owned businesses. So it'll be 51% owned minority-owned business, and you're eligible for these huge opportunities. So it's out there for the opportunity.
No more time to procrastinate, right?
Nope,
we did
no,
this
this
about,
is it.
I think it was like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago,
4 weeks.
last
I think
week.
the first week that it opened, we were we
So
talked
it's like,
about
you got all of June,
Yep,
you know,
and
but
then
think
we did
about
a
it. And
reminder
it was
a
like
week later in Spanish. And
June
Espanol,
30th,
so
that's right, June 30th is here, you know.
June 30th has come. Another thing which has come, which is today is the last day for, which is the Best of CVille voting. We've talked all month about all the great entrepreneurs on Today
There's so
Mañana.
many. There's so many.
I mean, just to list them all. I tried. That first day I listed as many as I could get my hands on. But, you know, I mean, the gym CVille is on that list for Best Niche Gym. You know, Castle Hill is out there for Best Cidery. Aqua CVille is on there.
I mean, it's just incredible how many people.
All our great partners, all the great entrepreneurs that have been on Today Mañana. Go there, just look. Also, just go there to look at the lists.
Yeah,
like
it's impressive.
If you've never heard of, you know, Anwarao and Shortbread, or if you've never heard of, you know, Midel at Serious Craddock, or you've never heard of Antigua, the realtor, go on these lists and see all the great businesses and people that are out there. Like, even if you sit there and say, I don't know any of these 5, so I don't know who to vote for. You don't have to vote. Look at the list.
There's even a podcast.
There's even a podcast
like
out there called Today Mañana that has 2 guys on it. You know, 2 Cuban, one Cuban guy and one half Cuban, half Italian guy. And, you know, you might want to give us a little vote for Today Mañana for Best Podcast, or give us a listen and see the other great podcasts that are out there. See the other great, you know, artists that are out there. There's just so much to learn about people, maybe businesses you haven't yet heard about, that you can be like, hey, you know what? I don't know them, but I'm going to go try them out now. Go check them out.
Exactly.
And see what they have to offer. Because I think you'll be.
Because it's all local, which is
it's all local.
Beauty.
It's all best of CVille. So literally just.
So if you live in CVille, you definitely should go visit that.
Vote.c-ville.com. Vote.c-ville.com, or you type in Best of CVille 2022 in Google, and literally just so many for you to reach out to and patronize.
So did you vote?
And I did. I have voted. Have you?
All right. Yeah, actually I did. I don't remember how it happened. I got something, and I just clicked on it. I realized I went into this area or website that was on the voting. I said, I might as well, you know, look around, and so, you know, people that I knew I voted for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. But this is, I think, a great quote from Kevin Higgins. Thanks for watching the show today. That we definitely have to tell people about. Apparently, Warren Buffett once said, "The market is a device to transfer wealth from the impatient to the patient."
Very good.
Which is very
good.
It's a very good quote. Patience plays a huge role in life, and it plays a huge role in the long-term market.
That's
you
a great
have
quote.
to always be this. That's a great quote. Thank you, Kevin Higgins, for watching the show and for
Kevin knows that's good.
He's always got great questions, great comments, and now great quotes.
Yeah.
Great quotes as well. So just
I think we should bring him in one day.
We should. Absolutely. So it's been a pleasure, Dan.
Same here.
Always fun. Really appreciate Tim coming on and sharing about it.
It was an education process.
I learned so much.
I mean, it's always the same, but
I always learn so much.
Fun,
Which is, I love it. I just love it. And so next week, another great day, we're going to have a pharmacy, CVille.
Okay. Oh, here for Code Building?
FARMACY, right here at Code Building.
Okay.
CIC grads. So a fantastic cafe, catering. I don't know if they still have the food truck. They did at one point, but they're literally
it's called
right
pharmacy
off the pharmacy with an F.
What if well, that's in Spanish.
Like farm, from the farm to the table.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, I know farmacia.
I kept thinking the same thing.
But it's not a pharmacy as in like.
No. I got it.
It's from the farm to your table. Local ingredients, fresh ingredients that they put together for delicious. I had what was that? It was like a naan with chorizo. and
there you are.
onions
That says it
and
all.
cilantro on this non-wrap. It was so good.
Yeah, but
So-
with you put chorizo on anything and you go,
Yeah, but the naan was
no,
good.
I understand.
like,
but I mean, you put chorizo on a cracker and you say, oh, I had this cracker with chorizo. Like, that says it all for you.
it was good chorizo though. So be
sure.
sure to check that out at pharmacy right to you, as you approach the Toad Building. It's on the sort of that left-hand side from the big entrance. Very easy to find. They're going to join us next week. So
Looking forward to it.
I always love talking to the CIC grads, Community Investment Collaborative, a great organization to support.
It is,
At
absolutely.
cicville.org, or to contact if you're interested in being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
or you have a small business and would like some assistance.
I think you'll learn a lot there.
Host of Central Virginia Small Business Development Center.
Yeah.
You got your one-on-one counseling, your webinars, a lot going on at CIC. So definitely encourage you to check that out. Always appreciate being here with you. Always
you.
love
Feel
being
the
on the
same
I
way.
Love CVille Network set with Judah Whittaker behind the camera, making us all look good, telling us where to hold everything, how to have it appear on the camera. You know, all those great photos you see of the people in front of the I Love CVille
That's
banner.
right,
It's
yeah.
Judah behind the camera of
That's
that as
true.
well. Really appreciate.
And I have to be honest, it looks like I'm doing a little better because I noticed in the last 6 months he hasn't come around and tried to fix anything. Either
True,
that or he gave up.
The hand
Either
of
that or
God
he gave
is-
up.
Yeah, it's true.
It
So
could
either
be,
God
he
gave
said-
up on you.
He said the old guy
or,
just can't learn this stuff.
Yes, we really haven't seen the hand of God moving your
That's right.
your microphone lately. So either God approves or he's like, I can't really help
Some
it,
things you
Xavier,
just
anymore.
can't help.
Some things you just can't help. So a big thank you as always to Aqua CVille Hand Car Wash, to Castle Hill Cidery, to the Gym CVille, to Sirius Craddock Insurance, to GBS Financial Services, to Forward Adelante, and of course, always presented by Emergent Financial Services. A big thank you to our audience for just participating and watching today. Thank you, Sarah Von Harbor, for watching. Thank you, Maiden Watson, for watching the show today. Just thanks everyone for tuning in this morning. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all your questions and comments and for sending us wonderful entrepreneurs to interview. And just we look forward to seeing you next week. Look forward to being on here with
Same
you
here.
next week as well in the month of July, which will arrive. It's arrived faster.
And happy 4th of July to
Happy,
everybody.
yes, because we will not see the
That's
audience
right.
before next 4th of July. So wishing you all a very happy and beautiful 4th of July as we celebrate the Independence Day of,
Stay
Day
safe.
of the
Don't-
wonderful United States
Careful with
of
those
America.
firecrackers.
Yes, be careful with the firecrackers. Enjoy your hot dogs and hamburgers. Enjoy your time with family and
Absolutely.
friends. Just appreciating how lucky we are to be in the United States of America.
Definitely.
We say that as descendant of immigrants and as an immigrant yourself.
I agree
How
100%.
fortunate we are to be in this great country. So
Pleasure.
thank you all. God bless you all on a happy 4th of July. And we will see you next Thursday. But until that time, hasta mañana.